it this way. Think of it as there's two worlds you got to master. The external world and the internal world. The external world you can't control, but you can influence. But the internal world, if you learn how, and we're going to show you the next few days, you can have absolute control of what you think, what you feel, and most importantly, what you do. And that's where the results of your life come from. So no matter what season we're in, we've got an opportunity. And look, we're into winter. We're probably 3/4 way through it if you study historians. It's probably going to be a little longer winter than you want. But some people freeze to death in winter. Other people snowboard and ski and build a fire and build their business and get close to their family and get stronger. And if you do well in business in winter, by the way, how many of you, by the way, own your own business? I'm curious. How many are self-employed, own your own business? Quite a few of you. That's awesome. Well, if you can do well in wintertime, you develop muscles that make you stronger for everything else. I remember I started my first business at 17 years old, 1977, 78, and interest rates were 18%, my friends. When I hear kids today go, oh my God, there's no future. I can't possibly get a house. I can't do anything because there's 7% interest rate. I go, I walked uphill both ways 10 miles to school through the snow, right? But it's true. It was 18% interest, but it didn't last forever, but it made me strong. And I watched over the last 47, this is my 47th year doing this, just blows my mind. Who's less than 47 years old out there, right? I've been doing this 47 years in 195 countries, and I got to tell you, during all that time, I'd have to be an idiot not to see these patterns. So one, I want you to understand, whatever's going on with you, we can deal with it. Yes, we're in a time that feels overwhelming for many people, and it's going to have more challenging times ahead, but you can develop a resiliency and a strength in you so this can be the best time of your life. And financially, by the way, people who learn how to do well in winter completely dominate every other season. You do well in this season, and it's a lot easier to do in this season if you keep your head together because everybody else is afraid and pulling back. You're able to grow forward and grow what you're doing. So let me give you a little background first so you understand how we get here and how I got here. And then I'll give you the format for this. So I've been obsessed for 47 years basically with a single question, and that is, what makes the difference in the quality of people's lives? What makes the difference in people's performance? You know, why is it so many people have huge dreams that so few actually live it? I'm no dummy. I know most people are not physically fit. They're not really healthy. They don't have passionate relationships long term. They aren't making the amount of money they'd like to be able to make. Most people don't even enjoy what they do for a living. But I don't get obsessed by that. I get obsessed by saying, who are the few people that are in great shape, that do have passionate relationships for decades, who have grown from nothing to being financially secure or free, who really have found a life of fulfillment and meaning and service. And I want to study those people. I don't want to study, ill people. I want to study the healthy ones. And that's the models from which things come from me. And my study was not just because I was intellectual and I was interested in these things. I was obsessed because I grew up in a really tough environment. I mean, I had 4 different fathers. My mother was a pretty intense character. I love her to death. She's since passed. I wouldn't be who I am without her. I honor her in every way. But she grew up in a generation that when they were stressed, they drank alcohol and they mixed it often with prescription drugs, Valium, which is pretty intense. And when she did that, she became very, very physically abusive. And I'm the oldest. My son, I call him son because that's how I looked at it. My brother was 5 years younger. My sister, 7 years younger. I felt like I had to take care of them. And so I became a practical psychologist, basically. I had to learn how to manage her emotions and shift her. That's where my original skills came from. And, I often have said to people, I really believe in my heart that if my mom had been the mother I had hoped she'd be, I wouldn't be the man I'm proud to be because I wouldn't have had to grow in this way. That's why I'm here today. So I want you to know it didn't come from ease. It came from pain. And one of the reasons that, I donate food and do the things I do also is because the first thing that changed my life was when I was 11 years old. We had no money and no food. My 4th father. And he was a good man, but he lost his job. And we weren't going to starve. We had crackers and peanut butter, but Thanksgiving is a feasting holiday in the United States, and so it made it even worse. And my parents were arguing and sharing things back and forth that once you say them, you can never take them back. Everybody remembers them. And I'm trying to get my brother and sister not to hear it. And long story short, a man knocks on the door. I open the door, and there's this tall man standing there with these 2 bags of groceries, and he had a pot with an uncooked turkey on the ground. And he said, "Is your father here?" And I said, "Just one moment." And I went to go get my dad, and he was screaming through this door at my mom. And I said, "There's somebody here for you, Dad." And he goes, "You answer." I said, "I did. It's for you." "Who is it?" I said, "I don't know." And I was so excited to see him be so happy. And when he opened the door, he was not happy. I couldn't believe it. He said, "We don't accept charity." And he went to slam the door in the man's face. And long story short, the man finally just said, "Look, sir, I'm just delivering this food. Someone knows you're having a tough time. Everyone has tough times. And, this is for your family." And my father went, "We don't take charity," and started to push the door again. And the guy's leg was there, so it smashed against it and popped open. And the man saw me, and I'll never forget this moment. He looked at me, and he looked at my father, and he said, "Sir, don't let your ego get in the way of taking care of your family." And I thought my father was going to punch him in the face. I can still see it like yesterday, his veins on the side of his neck popping open. And he took the food, slammed it down, and closed the door. Didn't even say thank you. Changed my life. Because that day, my father left shortly thereafter because he felt like he hadn't taken care of his family. He was embarrassed. It was one of the worst days of my life. But it turned to be one of my best days of my life because it changed my perspective. All my fathers had said, nobody cares about anybody else. Everybody's out for themselves. And we live in a really rough neighborhood where it really looked like everybody cared only about themselves. But now here's some stranger. To this day, I don't know who delivered the food. They weren't looking for credit. Some stranger cared about my family. And it made me believe if strangers care about my family, I want to care about strangers. It changed everything. And I promised myself that day, someday, I'd go out and I'd feed other people. And so when I was 17, I fed 2 families and then 4 and eventually got to 1 million people a year. And then a few years ago, about 9 years ago, I was writing this book, Money Master the Game. I was interviewing all these self-made billionaires while I watched Congress cut food stamps. It's now called the SNAP program, by $6 billion. It means every family that needs food would have to give up a week's worth of food each month unless people like you and I stepped up. And so I called my foundation and said, how many people have I fed in my lifetime? And at that point, it was 42 million people, and I was really thrilled about that. And I thought, what if I fed 50 million people in a year? What if I fed 100 million a year? What if I did 100 million a year for 10 years, 1 billion meals? And I'm proud to tell you, this last February, we hit 1 billion meals. So